borrow $200 from my dad. And it's a little embarrassing, honestly. I'm a married woman, and for all intents and purposes, I'm an adult. But I poorly mismanaged my money. There's a little bit more to the story. It's not really important, but I was misled by a happy hour advertising. And the ad said 35 cents a drink, but apparently that does not include vodka sodas, which is what I drink, and those are $12. So I needed to borrow $200 to cover my poor money management. And just for a little perspective, though, I would like to point out that in the news recently, many companies are poorly mismanaging their monies at billions of dollar levels. I'm in the $100, so I'm just saying. Anyway, my dad is older, which is funny because I'm so young, but he's not really online, my dad, and I was trying to explain PayPal, and it just wasn't going anywhere, so it seemed easier for him to wire it to me. So this is how I end up in a check-into-cash place in Echo Park, and this man walks in to check on the status of his check-in-cash, much like mine is not ready yet. The man smiles, he walks over to me, comes up to a point where if he steps one more step, he's going to be in my space, but he stops. And he says, "Did you ever think you were going to get murdered?" This is kind of embarrassing, but I didn't hear what he said because I was strangely attracted to this man. And I'm thinking, you're a married woman. What are you thinking? He's probably a nut in a check-in-a-cash place. And then I think, well, you're in a check-in-a-cash place. I mean, he could just be like you. He's in a check-in-a-cash place because he needs some money. He's a really good guy. He's got dreams and ambitions, but he just needs to better manage his money. So I smile back at him, and then I realized I can't remember what the question was he asked me, and I think it was something about getting married, I think. So I decided to just wing it, and instead of asking for clarification, which probably would have been a better decision, but I launched in, well, I just got married. I've been married a couple of months. I've been engaged twice, but I've been married once. And you, are you married? And he says, I said murdered, not married. If you're good and perfect like Jesus, you'll be murdered. Now I'm back where I started. He's a nut in a check-in-a-cash place, right? I say, oh, I'm not like Jesus at all. And I walk over to the guy behind the bulletproof glass, wishing I had better paid attention to my finances. And I say, is my money ready yet? And he turns and walks behind the two-way mirror, and I glare at the glass, but it's a mirror on my side, so I'm just glaring at myself. And the other man's still standing there, and he said, that's funny you thought I said murdered or married. And I said, oh, is it? I try and walk away, but we're in a check-in-a-cash place, so the only place to go would be to sit in the spilled Coke next to the obese blind lady talking to herself, or I could buy a lottery ticket, which I would, except that I don't have any money, which is why I'm here in the first place. And he continues, I was reading in the newspaper that a single woman in America has a better chance of getting murdered than she does married after 30. And I think, who counts these things and why? And suddenly the man behind the mirror comes out and calls my name, Shaz. I'm free. I'm in Echo Park, California. I have $200. Now I have options. I say, good luck finding Jesus. And I stop by the store to pick up a few items. On my way home, I pay with a $20 bill. And the cashier doesn't have any 10s or 5s. All she has is 1s and 20s. And she takes my 20 and the others and gives it to the manager to get change and asks if I'll wait while she gets a 10. No problem. I have no clear plan for today. I'm unemployed. So I step aside. I watch a lady outside yelling at her child, and the child is crying. And I'm very sensitive to children crying, perhaps because my own mother died. And when I hear a child cry, it feels like it's kind of an echo deep inside my soul, honestly. But so I look back at the cashier, and I notice that the guy behind me paid for his coffee and cigarettes with a 10. And then the lady behind him paid for her cat food and soap with 2 5s, and then the old man behind him paid for his beer with another 10. I make note of what the people behind me purchased and the currency used, but the cashier hasn't offered me one of those 10s. See, I can count, I can manage money at a small level. And I walk up and I say, hey, can I just get one of those 10s? And she snaps at me, I gave your 20 to the manager. He'll be back with your change. Okay? I I step back. The woman is still outside screaming at her child, and now there's a guy walking in circles around them, and he's kind of touched on heroin or something, and every third step he's kind of stumbling into the woman and her child, and the kid keeps crying because this guy is walking into them, but the mother is not removing this child from the situation. She's just yelling at the child to shut up, which isn't really helping, and the child's cries are escalating and echoing, and I turn back to the cashier and resume counting the people paying with 5s and 10s. And I glance up to the two-way mirror where the manager disappeared with the 20 that I had. I glare at the glass, but it's a mirror, so on my side, I'm just glaring at myself. And all I want is a 10, or 2 5s, or 10 1s. I don't really care. I just want to move away from this woman crying, and the baby, and the guy walking in circles, and the cashier that seems to think that my 20 is somehow special and can only be changed by the manager behind the mirror. And I walk up to the cashier again, and I say, listen, I gave your 20. I know you did, but just hypothetically speaking, if I had come up after any one of these people who have now paid with 10s and 5s, then the 20 I gave you would have been able to make change. I have no attachment to that particular 20. That 20 is yours now. That 20 was never even mine. I went to a checking and cash place, and the guy behind the glass told me the code, and he brought me some money, one of which was that $20 bill. I just want a fucking $10 bill, all right? She gets on the phone and calls the manager and security to come take care of this crazy woman. That would be me. The manager is there in 2 seconds, but he doesn't have my change. And I start to laugh, and then I start to cry, because I cannot explain to these people that I'm not insane. I just want my change. And that one of those 10s in her register is just as good as any that may or may not ever come from behind the mirror where managers live. And doesn't anyone want to make that woman stop screaming at that baby outside, and that guy stop walking in circles and knocking over the child? If someone would just pick up that kid and kiss him lightly on the forehead, he would stop crying. And the woman and her child are screaming, the guy's walking in circles, and the security guard's got my arm, just where the elbow where security guys do. And customers are starting to form a little crowd around me, see if I shoplifted something, or if I had something to do with the chaos outside, right? And the manager finally comes and gives me a $10 bill. And he gives the other 10s to the cashier, and the security guy let go of my arm, and just as I'm being escorted out of the store, this guy walks up to the cashier, hands a 50 to pay for some brie and pumpernickel bread, and she doesn't have any 20s, so she hands her the 50 to the manager and looks up at and I look up at this guy, and tears are streaming out of my eyes, and I say, do you have anything smaller? You will never be able to leave if you pay that 50. And he just looks at me like I'm crazy, right? And the security guard goes, I think you should leave. So I do, and as I leave, I reach down, I pick up the child, and the kid immediately stops crying. And I walk home vowing to from now on, take better care of my finances.